Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. So as you can see, this is a live video, so I might wait a minute or two here for folks to start coming in. The last live video that I did was readings for the month of June. Hi, James. Thanks for tuning in. So it has been a little bit since I did a sort of general reading for everybody. So I'd like to go ahead and do this today. There's a puppy outside. And we'll take a look at the end of July and a couple of things that you guys can expect in terms of, karmic elements and themes, as well as at the end of this, I'd like to do a general message from spirit, from the realm of spirit to the collective. It's been a really heavy month. Those of you that are following the Great Awakening and following the Q drops know that this has been an incredibly active month, especially an incredibly active last 2 weeks. So it just felt like the right time to take a look at that, maybe even get a direct reading on Q with the tarot. And something really interesting happened. It was brought to my attention very recently that a researcher, a Q researcher, somebody that, looks at what Q is talking about and tries to connect some dots, made a direct correlation, drew us a wonderful parallel between some of Trump's tweets and the system of tarot, which to me was like sensory overload because I couldn't believe that somebody was able to draw these parallels in terms of numerology. They were referencing the major arcana to try to make sense of a couple of things that President Trump was saying. And so to me, that's very exciting. It's ideal for me because some of you, hi, you guys. Hey, everybody. Those of you that have been with me for a while, you may have heard me make reference to this new media, this new age of media, where things like tarot, astrology, and even psychic sight are utilized in the reporting process. Now, that may seem like such a foreign concept to some of you guys, but I do believe that this is what we are ultimately looking at, a completely new age of media and journalism and news. And certainly it's always going to be about reporting the facts, okay? But if we look at what mainstream media, as they call themselves, as we call them now, if we look at what they're actually doing, so much of it has been blatant lie after lie. And so journalism really hasn't been about the facts for quite a long time. And so with the resurgence of a lot of, ancient religions, paganism, so many things are changing right now. It seems like a natural course for media itself to change, and for folks that utilize intuition, psychic sight, the divinatory arts. I do believe that this is going to make a comeback, and I'm just so excited to possibly be a part of it. I was just on my good friend Jeffrey Daugherty's channel yesterday. Go ahead and pop on over there. Most of you know me from Jeff's channel anyways, but we discussed a little bit about the, oh gosh, well, thanks AI. AI just stole my thought right out of my head. I really hate it when that happens. So I'm trying to think now. Hold on. Let me just backtrack about 15 seconds. Nope, it's totally gone. So we might as well just jump right on into it, you guys. Yeah, it was. Hi, Luann. So I see a lot of familiar names and faces in here. Hi, you guys. You're all so loving and supportive of me. I really appreciate it. So, and it's always like the same, like 10 to 20 people. And you guys are just so like, I don't know, you guys are just the best. You really are the best. So thank you all for your continued support. So I guess we'll just jump right on into it. And if that thought comes back to me, you'll see me just interrupt myself and completely digress on what it is I was going to discuss. All right. So today, hi, you guys. So, thank you. Thanks. I'm also really, really bad about multitasking. So I can't read comments while at the same time speak to you guys. I can just read and that's about it. Yeah, James, you're right about the nails. I got my nails done today, so I just feel like a new woman. I'm so excited. But there has been a lot of talk of World War III. I mean, listen, you guys, there has been talk of World War III for the past 10 to 20. So it's nothing new. However, I will say, with everything that's going on, I mean, we are on the heels of a highly controversial, it's going to be unbelievable, the 2020 campaign on both sides. We are going to see some incredible things come out, lots of secrets exposed, lots of very interesting strategies from both sides are going to be revealed. And to those of us that know what we're looking for, it's been a really interesting process because we can start to theorize about what they're going to do next and why they're doing it. And so it's kind of coming back to me a little bit. Something regarding the Area 51 thing, the distraction. It'll come. It'll come. I'm not worried about it. Someone says Trump isn't doing shit. Okay, that's fine. You can believe that, but I do. I do believe that man is 10 steps ahead of the game. Certainly not completely free of all means of control. He is still a human being, and we are all subject to even very personal forms of control. He could have a hard time controlling his temper. He could have a hard time controlling his the way he speaks, the way he tweets. I'm not trying to say he's a perfect person, but the proof really is all there that under his presidency, we have enjoyed the consistent exposure of secrets that for a long time have been shrouded in a cloak of secrecy. So I'm very grateful to him and President Trump, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, but maybe one day you will. It would be just such an honor and a privilege to be a member of your psychic team. Okay. Actually, I think that's what I was going to mention was I brought up very briefly in the last show I did with Jeff Doherty that I believe, and I don't have proof for this, but I do have circumstantial evidence, as we can see from past presidents. Some have in fact employed psychic advisors and astrologers, some of the best of their time. So I do believe that President Trump does in fact have a psychic team, probably a very skilled, very reputable group of astrologers, remote viewers, psychic shielders. He's smart enough to know that is absolutely necessary in an age of not only physical warfare, but spiritual warfare as well. Oh man, I didn't get any water to have with me, so I better just pray that I don't need to take a drink at any point. Okay. Alrighty. All right, so we're going to jump right on into it, guys. Today, instead of doing all 12 signs, which I find is very tedious and my quality honestly starts to suffer after like the 7th sign, I'm going to do the elements. So we've got earth, water, air, fire, and then at the end, my wild card is the element of spirit. There is, in fact, a recognized, acknowledged 5th element known as the ether or spirit. Really, it's whatever you like to call it. And so that we will reserve for the end, and that will be for those of you that on this particular day and time, or for those of you that are going to watch this video later, if you're not particularly identifying at that point in time as any of the elements, say I'm not, I might be an earth sign, but I'm not feeling particularly grounded or earthy or, in my zone today, then that will be the wild card reading for those of you that are just give me what you got. So that's what we'll do. So naturally, I would like to start with the element of air. And I don't know why that would be a natural. I don't know what's so natural about that. I just felt like saying that. So we're going to start with my air signs, okay? I need a cheat sheet. For as long as I've been doing this, I still have to jog my memory as far as who the air signs are, who the earth signs are. I know it. It's all in there. It's just, you know, these live videos have a way of just kind of suddenly go blank. Gemini, if anybody in the chat would, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, I love you, Melissa. Thank you so much. So yes, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, my air signs, perfect. This is for you. So I think what I wanted to do for these particular readings today, we're going to hone in on the wrapping up of the month of July. So today is the 20th. This is actually a very interesting day. Lots of deaths on this day throughout history. July appears to be a very significant month to the negative elite. They enjoy sacrificing people, pushing people to end their lives and do all kinds of things in the month of July. So what I would like to do is take a look at any and all, the circumstances that you air signs find yourself in, kind of in the middle, the back end of the month of July. We're going to look at how things are going to be wrapped up. Okay. So I think what I want to do here is break this into 3 parts. I typically do that. In the past, I have done internal mechanism, external mechanism, and then a guidance card. So I think what I'm going to do now, you guys can choose. If there are 3 things that you can think of, any suggestions for the 3 aspects that we highlight here, that would be cool. If not, I'll most likely just do internal, external. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to break down the 3 primary aspects of anybody's day-to-day life, which would be relationships, finances / career, and then we'll do a wild card. We'll do that. Okay, so we're going to do relationships, finances / career, and then the wild card, which we'll actually use as guidance. We'll do the wild card / guidance. All right, air. So I need you guys to tune in. I know that was very long-winded, and it took me way too long to come up with that. But I'm trying to be as go with the flow and organic as possible here, and kind of deal with what you guys are throwing at me today. Oh, someone says money, health, and relationships. We could do that. Actually, what did I say? Relationships. All right, here we go. All right, relationships, money, and guidance. Relationships, money, and guidance. Keep in mind, this is going to be reflective of any of the conclusions of these aspects. This isn't what is going to suddenly erupt. So we're going to take a look at the relationships, the finances, and the professional world, and then the guidance as it pertains to the conclusions of the themes that you've been dealing with this month. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I guess that isn't what matters. It has to make sense to you guys. Okay. Last one. Okay. All right, air signs. So relationships. I want to be very clear as far as what my definition of relationships are. Now, again, I realize that it is impossible to generalize, okay? Because even if you are an air sign, you absolutely have different concentrations, different ratios of the other elements within your chart. So if you identify on this particular day, at this particular time, or whenever you're watching this video, if you identify as the air sign, you're very much in your air element, then this is for you. And if you receive this message and if you have trust in the synchronistic mechanisms of the universe, then take the message as it comes. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. I don't need to hear criticisms. I don't want any of that crap. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, that's fine too. So as far as relationships go, I have the Princess of Cups. Okay, so just a quick breakdown of the Princess of Cups. One of the more interesting aspects of this card is that she can very often represent some kind of a message or a harbinger of good news. Okay, the Princess of Cups, she's probably the softest of all of the court cards, water being a very passive element, a receptive essence, having a lot to do with femininity in the psychic world. If this describes a person in your life, this is going to be a sister, maybe a younger sister, having a lot to do with that vulnerability, that youthful energy. It's a very innocent energy. Sometimes this is, in fact, a harbinger of a pregnancy, of an infant girl, a small child. And sometimes this is about the aspect of ourself that is incredibly vulnerable in any kind of a relationship. So if this speaks to a romantic relationship, this speaks to the part of yourself that is very giving, very forgiving, very nurturing, and that those are all of the positive aspects of this card. But there is a warning associated with the Princess of Cups, because she's usually the person that gets walked on or taken advantage of or drained, because she's so often giving. She's so much about, it's a very selfless card, and sometimes this is about a child, or somebody that has a very childlike essence about them. So it's very easy to wound the Princess of Cups. So, I would take this, air signs, as an invitation to be very conscientious of the fact that you could be dealing with somebody that is easily wounded, somebody that would like to make themselves more emotionally vulnerable or available to you. But this could also have a lot to do with your own emotional vulnerability in an interpersonal relationship, which I don't think I even really designated what I meant by relationships. A relationship in this, as this significator, this is somebody that you are either in a very intimate and personal relationship with. This could also, and this is very sensitive to how you choose to interpret it or apply it, it could also be a relationship with a family member, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor. So it is very broad, but that's why these readings, they're very much about how you take it, how your intuition is filtering it. So just keep that in mind. I realize that we can't make these things that general. Is late July an air sign? Well, I think that would really depend on what system you subscribe to. So Vedic and Western are very different from each other. But late July, in my experience, is actually fire. So I have a son born in late July, and he is just Leo all across the board. He is the quintessential Leo. Okay, so that was relationships, Princess of Cups, air signs. Let me tell you, just to illustrate some contrast for you, this doesn't speak to a whole lot of obstruction, okay? And in terms of the wrapping up, the conclusion of a relationship issue that either continued or began in the month of July, this speaks to a type of encouragement to be softer, to be more vulnerable. You're not being asked to be very hard or assertive or aggressive on any front in terms of relationships. You are being asked to at least consider being more open, or at least to consider the fact that the person in question needs that from you or is presenting themselves as being incredibly vulnerable. Therefore, this requires of you to be softer and more considerate and to tap more into the side of yourself that is more forgiving, more nurturing. Okay, there's a lot of innocence associated with that card. Okay, so moving on, we have money and career. So it is interesting. The money/career card is marked by the Seven of Pentacles, and I do think that there's no coincidence that the seven. We're in the seventh month. This does speak to a time of transition. So if we were to apply this to money and career for the month of July, we are talking about a period of indecision where we're really not sure. And basically at the forefront of all of this is the question, are these bills going to be paid on time? Am I going to be able to generate enough income moving forward? So this is a very transient, transitional card and speaks a lot to the anxieties associated with being in the matrix. We live in a very 3D world. Unfortunately, we have to play the game a little bit. We have to consider things like, money and bills and things like that. And it sucks. I'm with you. I'm not the most practically minded person. I wish I could just go live in the woods and not have to worry about, bank accounts and taxes or anything like that. But we don't live in that kind of a world. If you hear grumbling or anything, it's not my stomach. It is thunder. We are in South Florida in the middle of July, so we are very famous for our torrential thunderstorms here. So air signs, the month of July, your career and finances, the biggest thing here is this question, okay? It's clearly we're not sure if we're doing the right thing or in the right fields or in the right industry. But here's the thing. What comes directly after the seven is more of an organized, settled, regimented type of lifestyle. So we could be talking about a continuation of, unfortunately, some anxieties throughout the month of July. So you may just kind of be a little bit on edge in terms of finances and the work situation until the end of the month. Which sucks, but it's not the worst thing in the world because this doesn't speak to destruction and damage and unforeseen or unexpected losses or, big bills, big unexpected things that come your way that you then have to deal with. This does speak more to an uncertainty, which I understand is very uncomfortable, but it's also not the end of the world. So my wild card or my guidance card for these things, we're going to consider the wild cards in these readings as a means of coping with these conclusions of the month of July. What is it that we can do? What kind of a mentality can we adopt? What can we practically do here to facilitate the best outcome for these conclusions? And what I have is the Ace of Wands. Now, the Ace of Wands is an awesome card because this really does speak to any kind of a beginning. Anytime we're talking about the aces, we're talking about something, a fresh start, some new invigorating sense of either ourselves or, our sense of purpose. And it always speaks to that moment of ignition. So I do get the sense because these cards in particular are quite fixed and they're quite passive. Okay, so even if we look, I know this seems silly, but as a reader, you learn to absorb and translate all facets of the card, including color, including how they look. So if you were to look at these two cards, you will notice some darker shades. Okay, we both cards have purple, both cards have darker blue. We're looking at the element of cups and the element of earth. So both of these, as opposed to the element of fire, both of these things are a lot more passive. They're fixed. They are, and if we're talking about, a hermetic mindset, these things are colder. These things are more magnetic as opposed to electric, as opposed to active, as opposed to a lot of movement. Okay. So, I would say that what is necessary here to facilitate the best outcomes for the month of July for my air signs, for your money issues as well as your relationship issues, is the introduction of the wand energy. So this really does speak to If we were taking this to a very mundane place, this is an introduction of the fire element inside your body, which, this could literally mean get yourself out in the sun for 10 minutes, absorb the vitamin D. This is about getting your heart rate up on a daily basis, even if that's just for 10 minutes, to spike all of your hormones, to make, to reset your body, recharge your body. It could be a possibility that air signs, we're looking at a little bit of laziness, a little bit of stagnation taking place. Laziness isn't just a physical laziness. When we're talking about a relationship, sometimes we can get lazy in a relationship. We can start to, fall a little bit too much into the routine. We can start to think that things are just fine when they're really not. And what's necessary is this boost of, passion and excitement and doing something different. The Ace of Wands is highly assertive. Okay. This you can't miss this. It's almost as if someone turned a light on, whereas, before there was darkness. So I hope that that's helpful to my air signs. And I would like to keep a relatively fast pace here, even though I am a rambler. I don't want this to be an hour and a half long video. I think, oh my gosh, I'm already up to the 26-minute mark, and I've only gotten through air. Wow, I'm going to have to do something about that. Okay, so next we are going to do water. Let me take a look here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Oh, is my voice soothing? Oh, thank you, Miss Heidi. I have actually, one of my favorite things is ASMR. I love ASMR. I'm very picky about my ASMR. I don't just subscribe to any ASMR artist. I love Gentle Whispering by Maria. So please subscribe to her channel. As if she needs your subs. I mean, she is wildly popular and successful. But I do love ASMR, and I've wondered if I have what it takes to be an ASMR artist. Maybe in the future. Okay, so next I am going to do my water signs. So water signs I know because I am a water sign. So we've got our Pisceans, our Scorpios, and our Cancers. Okay, so we're going to follow the same template. Relationships, money/career, and then our guidance card for my water signs. So if you're watching, tune in, hone in on it. Your intention, it really does count for a lot. I tell people too, when I'm shuffling, it's very similar to a padlock, like one of the locks that we used to have on our lockers. When you hear the click, okay, that's it. Move back the other way, you wait for the click, and then you go the other way, you wait for the click, and that's how you know it's ready. So I wait for the proverbial click to take place when I'm shuffling these cards. That's how I know. All right, so water, relationships, money/profession, and then guidance. It's ready. I knew that before today was over, I was going to get this particular card. I just knew it. Okay, so it's so funny to me. Okay, so relationships, my water signs. We have the 9 of Wands, which is, it's labeled Strength. That's the name of that card in my particular deck. And by the way, for those of you that are curious, I am using the Thoth deck, or Thoth, however you choose to pronounce it. Wonderful deck. It's like top shelf liquor in comparison to any other deck that I have ever tried. I will never go back to any other deck. This is my deck for life. So 9 of Wands. All right, I will say for my water signs, this is a challenging card to come up in the position of any kind of a relationship. So we may be looking at a little bit of a problem. Let me be very clear. So this isn't inherently negative. Okay, none of these cards, even the more feared cards in the deck, such as the 7 of Swords, the 3 of Swords, the Tower, no card is inherently good or bad or anything like that. Every card is very sensitive to the cards that surround it. They're sensitive to the question that you're asking. And they all have a light aspect and a shadow aspect. But the reason why I feel like the more challenging aspect of this card is now being highlighted is because we're looking at how this applies to the world of water. Okay, so a water sign. So if we were to consider this, element versus element, water, is the cups, symbolic of the cups in the tarot. It does not do very well next to wand energy, whose correlation in the elemental world is fire. So we're talking about fire and water. And these two things, as you know, lots of chemical reactions take place between fire and water. Something too hot can, completely fizzle away the water. We boil the water. That's not comfortable. All of the atoms within the water then start to move very fast. So this does speak to a complication of sorts. But what I'm really getting here for you water signs in terms of relationships right now, we may be looking at one last big conversation, one last big obstacle that needs to be, this is water, Kate, just so you know, we're still on water. We could be talking about some nagging issue that has been kind of at the back of your mind, but still enough to affect this particular relationship, okay? As the 9 of Wands, obviously 9 is a very good number. I love the number 9. I'm actually a life path 9. But in the tarot, anything that comes before the number 10, such as a 9, we are talking about one last challenge, one last hoorah, if you will. So, and this is a very difficult thing for a water sign to deal with at times, because most of the water signs that I know, they're very deep, they're very sensitive. They love to, they love to intuit things, and sometimes their emotional world can become a little bit, it can be at odds with the more mundane. It can be at odds with the practical. So I have known water signs to be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more, melodramatic rather, in terms of how they emotionally process what's going on. But I do get the sense that we are looking at a period of time where those difficult conversations, they're inevitably going to happen. And what is required of you, water, at this time is to be very brave, point blank. I want to see if I can find the astrological correlation here. I believe that this is the 9 of Wands is the sun in Sagittarius, which, this really does speak to a very masculine, this is a very masculine concept in general, and not all that conducive to the watery psychic world of Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. So if we're dealing with any, fathers, brothers, significant others, boyfriends that are requiring of you, or, even for men, as I'm sure there's a lot of male water signs that are going to listen to this. This could speak more to, having to summon or evoke a part of yourself that is a lot more assertive, a lot more willing to look at something, sort of stare at something directly in the face, acknowledge it, instead of wanting, instead of recoiling back into your safe place. Now really is the time to stare at some kind of a relationship issue directly in the face. Because again, just to remind everybody, we are talking about conclusions. We are talking about any issue that has continued on through the month of July or began in the month of July. We're talking about how these things, what those outcomes look like. So I believe, water signs, what is required of you right now is a little bit more strength before the end, before the break, before something is made official. So sometimes this does have to do with that kind of awkward period of time before a couple becomes official. So it's like, so, what are we doing? How is this going to, that sort of thing. This can also speak to a water sign that is being challenged to be very straightforward about something that otherwise they've kind of been putting on the back burner. So this is a confrontational card, I will say. It's a good card. It's a powerful card. And it speaks to really, having an air about yourself and a confidence that I will say, admittedly, some water signs have a hard time with that because we tend to be more in the emotional realms. Okay, so moving on, I want to look at my water signs money situation and how that's going to wrap up in the month of July. So I do have the Princess of Discs or coins, pentacles, whatever you prefer. Again, so my court cards most of the time are going to represent actual men or women in your life. But if it doesn't apply to an actual person, then we are talking about themes, ideas, messages, and mentalities. So these things can be interchangeable. If you're anything like myself, you can be an entirely different person or have an entirely different mood, rather, on any given day of the month. I am very sensitive to cycles. I'm very sensitive to my environment. So I can embody different essences on any given day of the month. So this can possibly speak to a person in your life or a mentality or some kind of an attitude. Now, when it comes to money or the professional world, hi you guys. Ah, thanks, loves. Yeah, so you guys are gonna want to, first of all, you're gonna want to find out what your sign is. And it's okay, whatever system resonates with you the most. I love Vedic, but I'm biased because Heidi Vandenberg pretty much taught me everything I know about Vedic astrology. And it's, I have at this point, I have like an emotional attachment to the Vedic system. So that's what I would always suggest. But as far as elements and as far as how you identify, whether you're earth, water, air, or fire, that also can be interchangeable. And if you get a really good look at your natal chart, you will find that you are most likely a very healthy mix or some kind of a mix of all of those elements. I am mostly water. Okay, so it's very easy for me. I can always, no matter what system it is, Western, Vedic, sidereal, tropical, whatever, I can always gravitate directly towards the water readings because that's just who I am all across the board. Now, in terms of a money situation or a professional situation, we are happy to see whenever the pentacles are expressed because the pentacles have they have domain over the mundane world. We are talking about money, assets, regimen, routine, the physical body, physical health, how we work with money, what our attitude is about money. So this is actually really good. If she is a person right now who has anything to do with your finances or your professional world, she is a boss. She is a fellow employee. She's younger. If she's not an actual younger woman, she is an older woman that has a kind of youthful, playful mentality about her. Okay, so that's who she is as a person. She's very practical. Any earth woman, any pentacle woman, she's practical. She's looking at the long term. She's looking at what is lasting. She's looking at what makes sense, as opposed to anything that is, about instant gratification, frivolous spending, anything like that. So if this is a person in your life that has anything to do with your job, career, or your money, then this is a person. She could be a great accountant. She could be somebody that is willing to assist you with your financial situation. And she could have an opportunity for you. She could also be a woman in the family that is about to either a young mother, or about to have a child, or somebody who is pregnant, who is very, very focused on the financial situation. So water signs, if you know a woman who is a young mother, or a mother, a little bit older mother, as long as she has young children that need her, or, somebody that is very concerned about the financial situation at this time. What is required of you, water signs, is to be incredibly practical and super honed in on what is going to make you what is going to be long lasting, what is going to make sense. So be very careful of any kind of frivolous spending. Also, keep in mind that anxieties may be kind of high in regards to a financial situation when this particular court card comes up. I have seen this refer to women in the home that are, they have a high standard. They have a high standard. They're used to a certain way of living. They always want to have money. They always want to have everything kind of organized. So this can speak to a level of anxieties that a water sign may be having with this particular kind of character right now, and how difficult that may be. Alternatively, in terms of a career, professional, the Princess of Pentacles is a woman who is just starting school. She has just begun some kind of certification of some kind, and she is just super excited to dig her heels into some kind of art modality, some kind of a program. A lot of times this will have something to do with raw elements, earth elements, holistic medicine, any of the healing arts, any sort of like sports medicine, or even money. Someone that wants to go into the world of finance, someone that wants to go into Bitcoin, learn about cryptocurrency or something to that effect. Okay. So I just want to take a look over here and see what's going on. Yeah, so we're not doing Aries just yet. We're still on water, but we are almost done. My guidance card for my water signs for your conclusions for the month of July is the Emperor. So as a water sign, I can tell you I don't really enjoy this card as a concept in my life, because what the Emperor is, what he does. Now, let me be very clear. The Emperor, especially for a water sign, because the Emperor is anything but watery, the Emperor is any kind of structure. He is any kind of rule or order or law. He is the employer. He is the deadline for that report, for that assignment, for that payment. He is the structure. He is essentially what creates the four walls that we live in. Okay, so he speaks to something that is very reliable, fixed. This has a lot to do with fathers and a lot to do with traditional patriarchal male energy. And for a lot of us water signs, we tend to kind of strive against that energy because we like to be, and I really should only speak for myself because I have so much water. I'm more of an extreme case of water. But as a source of guidance, as a source of something that you can do and apply to help facilitate the best outcome for your July situations, this speaks to play by the rules, play by the book, do as you are. What is expected of you is really what you need to be delivering right now. What is expected. And I know that that's hard, because if you're anything like me, you tend to just kind of swim against the tide, go against the grain just for the sake of it, just because we can, just because we're a little bit more difficult like that. This is so, so bright. So let me see if I can maybe turn it down just a smidge. Okay, that feels better. Okay, so, but I will say too, in terms of a karmic influence, okay, because this isn't all about how we are supposed to conduct ourselves. In terms of a karmic influence or something that you can expect to just kind of happen, the Emperor does speak to influences. So kind of, if it's your husband or your brother or your dad or your employer or big brother, the government, somebody coming in and exercising some means of influence or control over that particular issue. So, a couple examples that are coming to me. If you're having an issue, a legal issue where money is involved, division of assets, child custody, some kind of a lawsuit, civil suit, something to that effect, this does speak to the decision ultimately being delegated to the power, to the judge, to the jury. This really kind of takes things a little bit out of our hands and is then surrendered to whatever power, whatever authority sits in that place. So, this is a little bit of a this isn't a soft time. This doesn't look like a particularly relaxing time for water signs right now. But again, it could be a lot worse. I don't, I'm not seeing a whole lot of red flags here, things that indicate, run for cover, brace yourself, the world's about to end. So it's nothing like that. So don't, try not to have too much stress. My water signs, we love to worry about things that we really just can't fix or can't control. Okay, so moving on. I think at this rate, I'm spending like 20 minutes on each sign. So I'm really going to have to try to not do that. And if anything, I might just have to not do a wild card or not do a fifth element today. I might just keep it because I really don't want to go past like an hour 10 at this point. Okay. All right. So I think, thank you. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. So I think now I'm going to do my fire signs. So if one of you would like to list for everybody in the chat your fire signs. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Aries, I believe is Sagittarius earth or fire? Can you believe I'm even asking that question at this stage of the game? It's unbelievable. But it's so different because I know Sagittarians that have like this huge dose of water in them and it totally throws me off. And I will tell you too, when I do a reading and I have a client, I'm not given their zodiac sign. I'm not given, Pisces or Sagittarius or anything like that. What I primarily detect is the highest concentration of whichever element they are, that they're in at that particular moment in time. So if somebody is in if somebody was born with a whole bunch of fire in their chart, but they're still technically a Pisces, the first thing I'll get hit with the orange, the reds, the whites, the yellows, the gold tones, and I will literally feel heat. I will literally envision in my mind's eye all kinds of fast moving plasmic, things going on here. And that's just the way that my psychic filters translate what somebody is about. Is I will immediately go to what element is most exalted in their system. Okay. So I'm not the best when it comes to each individual sign because I feel like each individual sign on a very individual basis can encompass so many different elements. And that can be interchangeable at any given time. All right, you guys. So we are going to do fire signs. So we're going to look at relationships, money/career, and then our guidance. So fire signs, hone in. Okay. Relationships, money and career, guidance. Interesting. Oh gosh. I was always told never to say that. When I was training to become a professional reader and just do this sort of thing as my, as my profession, as my trade, I was always told, don't pull cards and then say, interesting. Just don't do it because it's just such a stereotypical thing to do. And I find myself doing it constantly because I really do feel that way. It's interesting. Each and every time it's interesting. So I'm sorry. I can't help it. I need to make a conscious effort to not be a walking, talking stereotype parody of a tarot reader. My goal is to break the mold somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'll do it. Okay. God, I wish I had a drink with me right now. Some water would be wonderful. Okay. So fire signs. Okay. Fire signs. I have the star for your interpersonal relationships. I love this. I really, really do. I love the star. It's one of my favorite cards. It is number 17, 17 being a very significant number for me personally. A lot of people I know, especially with the whole QAnon thing, the Great Awakening, 17 has just been this repetitive number signifying a whole lot of interesting coincidences, 17 of this, 17 of that. And interestingly enough, in the tarot, the star does signify unexpected things, things that you couldn't have planned for. One of my favorite aspects of this card is that it has a lot to do with the spiritual links between the human race and what I like to call the other kin. Okay, so our star families, our galactic families, ETs, aliens, all of that stuff all go under the essence of the star card in the tarot because it speaks to that which is unseen, that which is cosmic, that which is kind of difficult to define. All right, it's the miracles in our lives. It is the magic that we don't completely understand, but we know exists because we've experienced it time and time again. So in terms of a relationship, this is a wonderful card. This is a wonderful omen. This is about finally finding some kind of an understanding. If you have had difficulty in a relationship that has carried on through July, and we find ourselves in the middle of it right now, we are talking about a period where you're suddenly going to look at that person and say, I think I finally get it. You could get an apology that you really weren't expecting to get. You could come into sort of be reintroduced to somebody that you thought forgot about you a long time ago. And this also does speak to, sometimes this does speak to getting back together. Sometimes this does speak to an on again, off again relationship that is quite unpredictable because remember, the star is about things that we can't really foresee. Sometimes, okay, so like I said, with every card, we have a light aspect and a shadow aspect. And when it comes to the star, the shadow aspect that I have had personal experience with, I have had this card come up to indicate to me that there was a person that was borderline obsessive, borderline, like I want to use the words like a stalker, somebody that is emotionally a little bit erratic, unstable, unpredictable. Now, this isn't inherently a negative thing. It's just something to know. It's just data at this point for you to utilize, okay? But I do want to let you know that for the most part, this is a very nice card to get. And if we were looking at, for fire signs in the month of July, if we were looking at a battleground, just a total shit show in terms of your relationships, we wouldn't get the star card, okay? We would get something else. So, this is a very positive thing. This may actually have something to do. Now, I just go with what I'm getting. But because we are in this very interesting crossroads as a civilization, especially the Western world, we are so on the heels of this disclosure event. And this card has always had a huge correlation for me personally as to our relationship with those, folks from other places, ETs, angelic beings, whatever the case is, because we are on the heels of this new understanding of what the human race actually is. I do feel like maybe leading this, maybe the fire signs amongst the population, the fire signs within the communities will be some of the first to instigate some kind of contact. They could be the ones that are bold enough at this point in time to be brazen and have this deliberate outward expression of what it means to be related to these ETs, what our relationship to these ETs are. Maybe it requires somebody with a heavy dose of the fire element, that assertive, laser focused, quite masculine property, to kind of be on the front lines of this disclosure and say, I'm going to speak out. This is how I feel about it. This is my experience. So that's, that's just one interpretation of that. So I'm just going to run with it. Okay, so now in terms of money/career for my fire signs, I again have the Princess of Cups. Now, the Princess of Cups made her appearance with the first spread of the day, and her application is always different depending on the question, depending on the position, any number of variables. But I'm getting that in terms of money and career for my fire signs, the Princess of Cups speaks to, I really think this speaks to children. This could have something to do with childcare, teachers, where there's small children involved. This could have a lot to do with like labor and delivery, people that work as nurses and doctors, the medical field, where what they're doing is they're caring. Now, let's be really clear here. I'm fully aware that the big pharma and the mainstream medical association is incredibly corrupt, and they're not actually healing people. They're making people worse, and it's this and that, and I completely understand. But even within the medical community, there are thousands of good men and women that got into it for the right reasons. They have a natural nurturing capacity. They want to heal people. They just find themselves in a corrupt field, in a corrupt industry. That's not their fault. And now they're in it. And now that this is what they do. But I do get the sense here that we're talking about, people that work in those, with the healing arts, in medicine. Labor and delivery is a big thing for me right now. Like, this is just kind of what's coming to mind. People that work as doulas, midwives, even alternative birthing, where you're not in a hospital anymore, you're home, you're having a home birth or something to that effect. But in terms of very practical things like money, the Princess of Cups is not a money card. So I think that, and if I was going to apply this to what your financial situation looks like, it would appear to me that a lot of your resources, your financial resources, are being funneled into the children. Things are going to the children, or that is what is best prioritized at this time. If there are some expenses that are required of you, your kid needs, some dental work, or which I had to deal with recently, your kids need, their summer camp going on or something to that effect. This really does place a lot of emphasis on a time of delegating a lot of resources to the younger folks. Okay. So I certainly hope that helps. And if you're thinking, if it's a career option where you're talking about, working with children or working in the healing arts or the medicinal field, then this speaks to more of an emphasis on being incredibly authentic about that. As we move, and what I mean by that is, as we move forward into a new age, a new world where all of these secrets are going to be exposed, I have a lot of clients that do work in the medical field, and they're very frustrated because they're still being pressured to administer vaccines. They're still pressured to, prescribe and sort of diagnose based on a corrupt system, based on an incorrect, inconclusive, incomplete system. So there's a lot of frustration there because their intention is always great. But at the same time, they're just striving against forces that are too big, because there's not, you can still get arrested. You can lose your job. We need to pay our bills. We have families to take care of. In the meantime, we do have to play the game a little bit. And that actually does align quite a bit with my guidance card, which is the Two of Pentacles. Okay, so the title of this card is Change. This does speak to having a very, like, a wonderful sense of adaptability, being able to change with things as they go. One thing I have experienced with fire signs is that they often have to assert themselves. They have to let people know how they're feeling, what's going on. They make great leaders. They make great speakers and things like that. But what I have noticed they sometimes have a hard time with is being very adaptive and being fluid and going with the flow. They want to assert. They want to be heard. Sometimes I have known a fire sign to have a difficult time stepping out of that for just a moment to readapt and to integrate the variables at that point in time, and to kind of reassess the situation and then adapt and then respond accordingly. Okay, so that's really what we're speaking to when we talk about coming to conclusions with what's going on for you guys, fire signs in the month of July. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to take a really hard, sober, critical look at everything that's going on. And you're going to have to take in that data, reassess, reintegrate, and then respond accordingly. Because, it's entirely possible that your method of moving forward with things has been a little bit too brazen, a little bit too fast, a little bit too much assertion. And so we have to just reassess. We have to just rework it just a little bit. Okay. So now let's take a look. And I have decided I'm only going to do the 4 elements because I really went over time today, and that was not my intention. But I'll probably do, I could do another one of these tomorrow or the next day. There's so much I want to do. You guys, my brain is pretty much just like ripping at the seams. There's so much that has come to me since returning from ECETI, when I did a presentation at ECETI a couple weeks ago, and just being on that property and then the trip home. And it has just been like hit after hit after hit. It's constant. I'm just hit with things all the time. And I just want to share them. I want to write them down. I want to post them on Facebook. And so I have certainly no shortage of content that I would like to share with you guys. It's just that I tend to be quite long-winded, and I don't want to sit here and make a 3-hour video and bore you guys. So it's probably best that I break it up into parts. So please remind me, who have I not done yet? We did the elements of air, water, fire, and now earth. Last but not least, my wonderful earth people. Right? Am I right? I think I'm right. Earth. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So same template as before. Relationships, money/career, and guidance for my earth signs. Like a padlock, just waiting for that click. That's all. Okay. Last one. Relationships. Oh, hot diggity dang, you guys. It's like, this is like, if you've ever seen the show Chopped, and they have the basket, the mystery basket, and all these crazy ingredients, that's what I would equate this particular spread to. I mean, this is just such a challenging basket right now. And the mystery ingredients are just totally wild right now. Okay, so Earth, you guys have a lot coming down the pipe. I'll tell you that right now. So far today, Earth, my Earth signs, you guys are the first folks to have 2 major arcana in your 3-card spread. So automatically, what I can tell you that this means, is that we're talking about a very karmically charged point in time, meaning that you can make all kinds of decisions. You can make any kind of judgment call at any given time, and you will still be subject to the forces of karma at this particular stage. Now, I know that that might feel like a very scary concept. Really, it's not. Because if you made it this far in life, you've been subject to the laws of karma since the moment you were born and all your incarnations before that. So you're not new at this, you guys. This is nothing to be scared of. That being said, because we do know that free will and choice govern all things, including destiny, including fate, there are times in life where we can kind of veer within a reasonable scope. We can veer and make decisions that kind of vary, and we will still come to the same places. We will still be met by the same circumstances, as if we made a different choice. I hope that that makes sense. I know what I mean, but again, that's not what matters. What matters is that you guys know what I mean. So basically what I'm saying here is that karma has some things in store for you guys. So on the bright side of that, you don't have to struggle too hard. You don't have to be too anxious about whatever choices you're making right now, because it's all kind of mechanically, those wheels are already spinning. They're already in motion. So just relax and lean into it. Lean into it. Certainly don't fight it. That's the last thing you're going to want to do. You're not going to want to fight it. So, okay. As far as your relationships, and we mentioned the wheel, okay? And that's exactly what I have. The Wheel of Fortune, okay? The Wheel of Fortune. This is one of those cards that for me is so sensitive to the question that's asked, the position that it's in, and to the cards that surround it. Okay, the circumstances just make or break this card. Now, in terms of a relationship and how this speaks to interpersonal relationships, our husbands, our wives, our children, our family members, our friends, people that are close to us, people that we actually care about. And in some cases, there's such a thin line between those that we love and those that we absolutely hate. So if we're talking about a difficult relationship with a spouse, a difficult relationship with a sister or a brother or a mother or father-in-law, we are talking about these. Those are applicable to this particular position, because these are personal relationships where our energy is invested in some way to this person. It's not about acquaintances. It's not about the person that you see at the gym once in a while. This is about the people that affect you. These are the people that matter. Okay, so now in terms of a relationship, this speaks to huge shifts in priorities. This can also speak to prophecies. Okay, so visions, dreams, psychic foresight, if that makes any sense. And so when talking about relationships, this speaks to certainly conclusions, okay, certainly things kind of coming to the surface and being brought up again, because again, we're talking about a wheel, okay, and so in relationships, things work very much on a cycle as they do with everything else. So we are talking about the resurfacing of certain things, okay, the resurfacing of, sometimes they're suppressed emotions, sometimes they are, things that hurt us in the past that we are now being challenged to face again, perhaps in a different form. But this really does speak to things coming full circle and the importance that the cycles of time have on our relationships. If you've been married for 10 years, we are very much talking about a relationship that is very different from the one that you entered into 10 years ago. And also, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. This could be a positive change, or it could have been a sort of de-evolution of a relationship. That's not for me to decide. That is for you to decipher, how this applies to you, how this applies to your relationship. But it more so than anything else, it is a card of change. And it reminds us that the only constant in life is change and that nothing can remain the same. So, on in a light aspect of this, things that need to be spoken about, things that need to change, they will change. And the wheels of karma will see to it that, the time doesn't stop. The world doesn't stop going. We're in a continuum. We're in this. A relationship will continue, even if something happened where it was like someone threw a wrench into the spokes of some kind of a wheel and it stopped. Everything came to a screeching halt. This speaks to the forces of time, the forces of love, the bonds of a biological connection to a sister, a brother, a son, a daughter, a mother, a father. What those biological connections, how strong they are, and how they can override. They can override anything. They can override what was thrown into this wheel. And it's like, no, enough time goes by and we will just keep on moving. Karma is just one of those things. The wheels of change, it is just one of those things. It just can't be stopped. So I hope that is helpful. Now we're going to go to the career/money for my earth signs. So I have the Eon, okay? And in my deck, this is called the Eon, but in other decks, this is known as the Judgment card. So I'm going to try to escape the glare a little bit. The Eon card. This is, so a couple practical applications of this particular card. This card makes me a little bit nervous, and I've been reading for so many years at this point, but it still gets me a little bit, nervous because it speaks to having to kind of strip away all of our defenses, all of our masks, and really get this sober look at any given situation and at ourselves. So this is when you're like, it's late at night, you've washed off all your makeup, you're totally in your natural state, and your family's around and everything is just as it really is. Your mask that you have on during the day, how you are with folks in the real world, all of that goes away. And what you're left with is, the nighttime. You're left with yourself. You're left with, the truth of who you are. Practical applications of this card, we are quite literally talking about resumes, entrance tests, like a battery of tests. We're talking about drug tests here. We're talking about lie detector tests. Anything, if you are looking to start a job or enroll in a school, the Eon/Judgment card will ask you a million questions. They will ask you about what you had for breakfast yesterday. They'll ask you what you did at 16 years old that you wish you hadn't have done. We're talking about background checks, depositions, any kind of legal issue where you're being kind of put under the microscope. That's really what this card is for me. That I've always interpreted this card to be under the microscope. So if you're getting audited, if you're having to submit some kind of financial affidavit, we're talking about kind of on a financial realm, on a financial level, all things being brought out into the open, as far as professionally as well. So if this is, something that you're doing, say you are looking to be promoted, you're looking to move up in your company, this is the interview, the process, having to have these meetings, having to kind of let it all hang out and be very, very honest, okay? This is not a bad thing, okay? This doesn't speak badly about finances or career. This is an incredibly necessary step. This is, and it's a wonderful thing because what's on the other side of this is exactly what was meant to be, exactly how it was meant to play out. And so this speaks to, okay, listen, the only way we move forward from here on out is to go through with, the proceedings. We have to go through with the questioning. We have to go through with the, going down the list. So it does speak to no more secrets, really sort of exalting all of these characteristics, these traits in ourselves that we're not, we might not be so comfortable showing to everybody. So I hope that is helpful. Okay, so now my last card is going to be the guidance card for my earth signs. Now, I do have the Three of Swords, which again, this is one of the cards that people, including myself, this isn't the most welcomed card in a reading. I mean, even if you just look at the colors, we're looking at a lot of darker colors. We've got our greens, we've got our blacks. And it's a somber energy. It's a somber energy. In a very practical sense, this speaks to things like separations, estrangements, different sides, opposing sides of a truth. So your side, her side, and the truth. And this does speak to, this could speak to missing someone, feeling left out, feeling like you're, experiencing this kind of disproportionate amount of alienation at this particular point. And it's always interesting to me to try to find an application to a card like this when it comes up for guidance. How do we utilize the concept of sorrow and separation as a means of guidance? And so if we loop back just a little bit to the Wheel of Fortune, what the wheel shows us is that there really is no remedy for something whose time has come. All we can do is lean into it. So we lean into the sadness, we lean into the fear and anxiety regarding any kind of a situation, because if you clam up and you stiffen up, you will break bones, you will hurt your nervous system, you will just create all of this unnecessary resistance within your body to something that just has to happen anyways. And it's very uncomfortable, especially for an earth sign who is very used to structure and, logic, and things are very practical and everything has its place. Very reasonable, realistic people. I love earth signs. They don't always like me, but I have a deep appreciation for earth signs. But as a means of guidance, I want to take this as an encouragement for you guys to perhaps understand that sometimes these opposing viewpoints or these periods of separation, these periods of estrangement and discomfort, they're incredibly necessary. And we go like this in life anyways. So this month, you may experience this sensation of feeling alone, like you're being completely misunderstood or misinterpreted, whether accidentally or purposely. But either way, this does speak to making the best of a negative situation and understanding that if you are currently alone, you just got out of a bad relationship or you just got out of a good relationship, you've broken up for whatever reason. This speaks to channeling all of these emotions that feel very negative. They feel very damaging and like you've just been dropped 10 pegs down. This really does remind us that things change. The wheel reminds us that things change. There's nothing that can stop something, especially a karmic force. And let me be very clear, because this is controversial. I don't believe that there is some external power, such as karma, that is going to deliver to you something that you deserve. I believe that we are just as efficient in creating our reality as any of the larger mechanisms that are at work in the universe. I don't feel inferior to any of the gods or goddesses. I don't. I feel like I am just as powerful. I am just as able and certainly just as willing to create and sort of forge my own path. So I don't like, and I will never tell you guys that karma is coming to get you, that you are going to pay for what you've done one way or another. That's not the case. And I think anybody that tells you that doesn't understand the laws of karma or really just wants, it's a means of control to let you know that there is some boogeyman that is coming to get you for something that you did 10 lifetimes ago and is suddenly going to get you for it. I don't believe that that is the case. Certainly there are consequences. Consequences are a completely different thing than karma. consequences can be a good thing or a bad thing. But this really does speak to looking at this as more consequential as opposed to punishment, and something that just has to naturally take place in order to facilitate the next step, which I would say is better. So for my earth signs, I would say that next month is going to be significantly better than this month, and you can expect a nice break in what your mental focus has been this month. Next month, I expect there to be a shift there. So, okay, guys, that is it for my element readings for today. I would love to jump on here and do some QAnon stuff. I know a lot of you are not interested in QAnon or the Great Awakening, and that is totally fine. I wear many hats. I have many interests. And I am very excited about what is going on in the Q world right now. And I am, you'll see me do this with it. You'll see me back off and say, I don't want any of that this month. And then you'll have a month like this month where it's just been boom after boom. And I've felt spiritually so part of it and especially with this very interesting parallel that's been drawn between some Trump tweets and between the tarot. So I would love to get on here and do a video particularly about that. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really hope that this has been helpful for you. I would like to do these a little bit more often. I know that you guys love it, and it's something you can use. It lets you know you're on the right track or the wrong track. And just for those of you that don't know, I am totally super excited to take on new clients. My website is jennymoonstone.com. And so you guys, it's really user friendly. I am very responsive to messages. Some messages I get, they don't require responses, and they're more just like people talking at me. So I don't respond to certain messages where people are just kind of telling me how to live my life or telling me this, that, or the other. But if you have questions, if you would like to share things with me, you'd like to interact, and certainly if you would like to schedule a reading with me, jennymoonstone.com, you guys know where to find me. So again, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will definitely see you soon. Bye.